Hey guys, it's Gary. I'm back. With equipment problems and all. This is about the fifth attempt I'm doing to record this video. All kinds of equipment boondoggles this week. I'm quite delayed in this response, and thank you to the wonderful Carm for the VCLT that he sent me. There's so much of it. There's just so much of it. I'm kind of overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed at the stuff that he sent and the kindness and everything, and I'm overwhelmed at the stuff I received as well. One of them is playing in the background, though. If you've been watching my channel, though, you may have already seen and heard a couple of the things on that he sent me. I'm just gonna start. I'm gonna kind of start randomly. Because this is playing in the background, and I put this up a couple days ago. I fell in love with this right away. Somebody I was totally unfamiliar with. Michael Bierlo. This wonderful solo guitar album, Lifeline, from 1986. I was totally unaware of him as an artist. Rob from Boston, though, did send me an update saying he played with a couple bands that I've heard of, but I don't think I've ever heard of any actual music. From supposedly Michael played with Mission to Burma and Bird Songs. I forgot what the full name of the band is. Anyway, a couple bands I'd heard of, but I'd never heard their music, and I've only heard of the bands. But as a solo artist, never even heard the name. Nice album, recorded on Inner Light Records. I think, it's an awful small label I've never heard of. And all the music is played by Michael on Ovation, acoustic guitar, and a very processed electronic guitar. Electronic guitar. Recorded April 1986, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Really nice. About like a 41-minute album. Really nice. After I got it, I put it on. I loved it right away. I had to record it into my computer so I could listen to it there. I also wanted to burn it onto a CDR. I did looking up to see, any history I could find on the album. It doesn't. Despite 86 is a funny year for releases. I guess some smaller labels weren't necessarily releasing their stuff on CD yet, but the major labels pretty much were. But it doesn't look like this ever received a CD issue. So I'm glad, the vinyl's in really good condition. Like a small couple of clicks here and there, and the only kind of grinding kind of click sound is like at the beginning of the very first track, where all records are pretty rough there. There's a little bit of pops there at the beginning, but apart from that, there's like nothing. It's incredible. Almost like the vinyl wasn't played. But I love this so much, I had to burn it onto CDR right away. I had to get it on get it on a little portable CDR so I could bring it with me, not just in the car actually, but I brought it in to play in my my living room. I basically have two rooms. I have this room and a living room. That's it. But I actually have a very small, inexpensive, cheaply made surround sound system that I got for free, actually. And I've had it for about 5 years, and I never took it out of the box. The intent was someday, and it hasn't happened yet, I'm going to have a television set for my living room, and the idea was to get some kind of Blu-ray or CD player, and hook that up to the surround sound system that I got for free. It was through my old job thing, and since I didn't have the TV, I can't hook it up to my one TV I have here in my bedroom, because I got my other stereo set up through there. So I've had this thing in a box for 5 years, and I'm like really desiring to hear some surround sound. Just take a couple of my CDs and hear what they sound like in surround sound. But I had the thing in the box still sealed for 5 years, And I finally came across, now I don't know anything about surround sound systems. I thought it might have come with a CD player or DVD player, but they don't. So I took the thing out of the box, hooked it up, and realized I got nothing to listen to on here. I don't have a spare DVD player, or I'm not going to unhook my ones that I have here in the bedroom. And I was lucky that I found this really cheap CD player that I've had as like a portable Walkman thing. Really, I thought it was a piece of crap, to be honest with you. And I haven't really used it for a few years. I wasn't even sure if it still worked, and I hooked up that CD player through an input into the surround sound system, and just about, it wasn't the first CD I put on, but probably the third one I did, was the CD that I burned of this album, just so I could listen to it in the living room, cranked at a volume that I don't normally listen to things at. Normally I listen to music on my computer speakers, and I have a decent set of speakers. I actually have the two smaller speakers, but I have a very good subwoofer thing that really delivers the bass on my computer speakers. So I've said this before, I take all my CDs and I immediately, even before I listen to them, dump them into my computer, and I pretty much played them from there. The subwoofer on my computer speakers are better than the bookshelf speakers that I have hooked up to my stereo system with the Sony receiver and all that stuff. I got crappy little bookshelf speakers that don't really deliver much there. Primarily, it's hooked up to the TV. But I do have my stereo receiver hooked up to that as well. But with those bookshelf speakers, they don't really deliver. So I pretty much listen to things, any CD, album I buy or anything, through my computer speakers. So, whenever I get, vinyl or something like that, I have to copy it into the computer right away. I only do it with the vinyl that I really like, though. But I got to say, it caused there were some technical glitches this week. And I was copying this vinyl in, and looking at the level meters didn't look right. And it turned out that one of the channels wasn't recording at all, and there was no sound coming through one of the channels. And the problem is all of the wires and the cables that connect the turntable, which isn't really that close to the rest of the stereo system, the receiver and everything. And then from the receiver, I can actually deliver the signal into my computer. There's a lot of cables involved. I thought, don't tell me one of those cables disconnected or broke or something happened. And I had to go and just move a ton of stuff in the room. All these cables are behind furniture, and I really can't access them. So I had this whole day it was a whole day affair getting this album recorded into my computer and editing the files from there. It was a whole day affair because this one channel had just completely failed in the computer. And I'm like, oh my God, and I don't know where the fault was. Where's the lines? I have lines going from the turntable to the stereo receiver, and then lines going from the stereo receiver out to the computer. So this long set of wires going completely along the wall, going from the turntable into the receiver, and another big long set of lines with extensions and everything going from the receiver into my computer on the other side of the wall. And I don't know where the fault was. So I had to dig out there and just pull up any wire that I could pull up. And just, when I eventually got back there and got all sweaty and dusty and everything, was able to I didn't see anything wrong. So I just, basically unplugged everything and plugged it back in. And thankfully, after a couple hours of that messing around, if not longer, I got the signal to work in both channels, was able to record this into my computer, and I even put it up on YouTube, and I listened to it. I've listened to this album, 14 times already. I've listened to it on my surround sound system on the CDR that I made eventually when I got this recorded. Which sounded great because I'm playing around with the surround sound settings and, changing the settings and different hallway reverb modes and all that stuff. So I've played this louder than I've played any really recording since I've moved here 2.5 years ago. Just in my living room during the day. So that was a nice experience. I have it copied in my computer, and I've listened to it there in MP3 format. and I put it up on YouTube. I listened to it two or three times on YouTube, actually, to see what it would be like for other people experiencing it, because I wanted I figured anybody that sees my videos might like to hear it. When I went there today, though, I see that it looks like the copyright guys caught me, and it looks like most of the songs have actually been they deleted, but they wiped the audio basically, so there's no soundtrack. I'm a little surprised because this was. Hey, if the artist said to me, take that down, I would take it down in a second. But this is such an obscure, and I thought this was a private release. It's out of print. It's not available. There's almost no way for anyone to hear it unless you can hunt down a used vinyl copy. I really didn't think that the audio would get pulled from me putting it up. I'm a little surprised. It seems like it was. So I don't know. I'm going to check and see how much is left of it there. It seems like at least half of it was taken down. So I'm going to see what happens if they end up pulling all of it. I'll probably just take the file off. I want to leave it up. And I don't know if there's any chance that the audio would ever come back. I don't think that happens once it's been wiped. But beautiful record, though, and I really love it. First thing I thought of when I played it was New Chautauqua, Pat Metheny's 1970, I think it's 78 or 79, I think 78, his first solo album where he just him alone playing guitars. I like it better than that, though. I'm not quite a fan of the countryish stuff so much that Pat Metheny does on that album. I like the mellower, quieter stuff, and that's pretty much what this album is. But there's a little bit more in 2 or 3 tracks, a bit more electronics there. Reminds me maybe a little bit of Bill Frisell's first solo album, In Line, which was a solo album, which also had some upright bass on about half of it. But there's a lot more, low-key, but more electronics on there. So it's a little bit more electronic than Pat Metheny's New Chautauqua album. Not quite as electronic as Bill Frisell's In Line album from the early 80s. Both 2 albums, which I love very much. It's kind of somewhere in between. Beautiful album, though. Beautiful album. And I see he has recorded, at least there was one other vinyl album that I saw that he had recorded. I couldn't find any information whether it was solo or whether there's other musicians on it. It seems to be fairly obscure guy. Really, really nice album, though. Thank you, Carm, by the way. I'm doing things out of order here. I've been let me explain what I've done. What I've done here. When I was a small kid opening toys and stuff like that you get for Christmas, my mother said she was always amazed that most kids jump in their pile and just tear everything open. And what I would do, and I don't know why, I can't tell you why I did this. What I would do is open a present, and, it would be some toy that I wanted or something, and I'd actually spend time playing with it for a while before going on to open another present. And it's not that I wasn't curious what else was in there. I guess I was just so in the moment, so excited to get something that I really liked, that I spent time and experienced that thing before I went on to something else. And so I've been spending a lot of time, actually all my listening time, to the stuff that Carm sent. And there is one thing I haven't got to yet, for being so delayed in this response. And I see my computer's doing funny things again.
Too. So I'm hoping this isn't going to be one of those audio glitch things that I've experienced. But it looks like it might be because my picture's freezing up on me. Hopefully this isn't going to be too bad here. I think I figured out why that happens, though, because I am running out of space on my computer, and I honestly don't know what I'm going to do about it. So I have one thing that Carm sent that I haven't got to yet, and I'm very curious to get to it, but I've been so into listening to the stuff that he sent me, and I really spent the whole day on that last Michael Barillo album, that I did that entire day. I didn't get to listen to anything else, I was running around quite a bit on Saturdays. Saturday's my laundry day, and I have to leave my place to do the laundry, and it ends up taking hours and hours. I lose a big chunk of the day that way. Generally, I don't mind because it's the only time I'm getting out of the house right now, but it also meant that I, wasn't here to really get into much stuff. So I have this one album that looks really interesting because it's by a keyboard player.
J.D. Emmanuel, Echoes from Ancient Caves. So by the title alone, and Carm knows my taste, so I'm absolutely sure I'm going to love this. And I will report on this in the future after I get to hear it, but I haven't gotten there yet, and I just didn't want to wait any longer. I've had this stuff for 4 or 5 days now, I think. This is a studio recording from 8081. Continues my mix of electronics and jazz, according to the liner notes. This looks like this was also a private release. It was originally came out on cassette, a cassette-only release in 1981. It uses tape loops and Crewmore organ, which right away brings me to that Terry Riley thing, my favorite thing in the whole world, probably. And there's some acoustic guitar and synthesizer, organ pieces, and that's all that stuff is on the side A. Side B is multi-tracked organ and synthesizers. Wow, I really can't wait to hear this, despite the fact that I haven't got to it yet. I just didn't want to wait to make the video. I will respond, and I will mention this in my, next time I do a video or whenever I really get to this. And here's another thing that I'm totally in the dark about, another artist I don't know. But just from the titles and the instruments, I love electric organ, and I think one of the main things that I got that love from was from Terry Riley's stuff. Even with all the wonderful synthesizer things that have come along since then, in a way, as a result of all the technological things that have occurred in the last couple decades, it's almost like the organ sounds seem to have been largely ignored or forgotten because they were so prevalent, especially in the 60s, when electric keyboards were pretty much maybe an electric piano, an electric organ, and that was it. But I never tire of those sounds. Never get tired of them. Also, what Carm lovingly sent, Starstreams, the show that he is just a nut about. These I actually took with me in the car when I was doing my back and forth on Saturday with the laundry, and actually brought it with me to listen to while I was doing the laundry. He said there's 4 CDRs of Starstreams, 2 different shows. Each CD has the first hour of a show on there. And they're both from 1990. And it didn't dawn on me until just a short time before I recorded this video. Oh, wait a minute. I could also dump these into my computer, which I did. I've done it with the first one. I haven't done the second disc yet. So, and I have no space in my computer, so I have to be really careful what I put in there, but there's no bad stuff. There's nothing that I wouldn't want in my computer to permanently listen to. The first Starstreams 2-disc set, each thing runs about 46 minutes, and I've forgotten that this is, I guess they broadcast it on commercial stations, which it didn't dawn on me until I saw the running time of each hour, which is about 46 minutes, which is what you get roughly for running time on commercial stations. I always thought of it as an NPR non-commercial type program. I didn't even realize that it's on probably commercial stations as well, syndicated. So the first disc has Thunderchord as the feature album by Coyote Oldman. Funny because I never forgot about Coyote Oldman. I'm very familiar with the band, but I haven't heard their stuff for a while. And hearing it on the show when I was out in the living room, one of the things I was doing when I was actually playing my surround sound CDR version of the Michael Berlow album was looking for Coyote Oldman CDs that I knew I had. I'm sure I have Thunderchord and I can't find it. But just as a result of, somebody sending you something like a gift, and it sends you running back into your own catalog of things to dig them out, I did find 3 of the Coyote Oldman things I have, which is best of. I always kind of, in a way, think it's a weird thing to do a best of album of such an obscure group that, obviously never had hit singles or anything like that. And nothing wrong with the compilations, just it's an odd thing to call it the best of in a way. Tear of the Moon, and it's funny because all three CDs that I found related to this group were like in three completely different places. And now, because Carm sent me this, I don't have these three dumped in my computer, and I want to get all three of them in my computer. Barry Stramp, one of the members and the guy that actually plays the flutes, this is his first solo album, Sky of Dreams, from a 91. He plays a Japanese shakuhachi as well on there, and bansuri flutes, the Indian bansuri flute. It's been a while. These aren't in my computer, so this computer I probably had for 8 or 9 years, which means that's as long as I haven't heard these. And thanks to Carm sending me the Starstream program, I want to hear these again now. And I was actually almost the very first thing I heard on the Starstreams program was they don't announce what they're playing before they play it so much. I recognized the Patrick O'Hearn track. Funny, it's funny how all of a sudden there's something. Oh, I know what that is. The Peter Manu or Manu, I never know how to pronounce his name. A track from his only solo album, Warm Sounds in a Gray Field, I think it's called. Love that album. I think I mentioned it on a video. It's really his only solo album. They played a track from there. A whole bunch of things that I am not familiar with that were really nice, that are making me, that the reason why I'm dumping these in my computer is to reference them back, not just to play the shows, but to hear back and to add to my 5,000 plus strong wish list of things I want to get. Because there's so much good stuff in there that I was not familiar with. And a second program, and I've actually heard all 4 of these discs, that he sent me, a Starstreams 1990, another 1990 episode that he sent me, where there's a Sheila Chandra album, that's the featured album. And I have heard her, I actually have her on a multi-artist compilation thing. I think it's one of the Echo's Living Room Concerts albums, but I have heard her music. And I stuck them in here. He sent a couple cards from the local record stores where he shops regularly, and hopefully you can see those. B-Side Records, Berlin, which I guess is Illinois. They don't actually list the street address, so I guess Berlin is the city? Not sure, I haven't heard of it. And another one, Permanent Records, which is a good name for a record store, which does have the full address on there. This is in Chicago, actually in Chicago. And so I don't lose these, because otherwise I would. Jeff likes to send things like this to Mr. Vinyl Spin, which I love. I put them in the case so I won't lose them. I certainly won't forget who sent these to me. I listened to the second program. Again, there's a whole bunch of things. They played in the second program. I sat listening to this track for like 6 minutes, and I'm like, I know this track like the back of my hand. I've heard it for 3 decades at least, and I can't figure out who it is. And just before the announcer came and finally announced what it was, I realized that it was Manuel Gottsching from Asherah Temple's New Age of Earth album. So that's one of the wonderful things that they played on the second program. Another thing they played on the second program, this is kind of funny, is this really weird track. Is electronic music background, but a guy reciting a obviously fictional story over it. And the guy that's reciting the fictional story, I don't know if it kind of sounds like a bad actor. It's like, wow, this is really weird, and not weird in a good sake. And I'm like, wow, this is really weird. It's almost like a really bad B-movie actor reciting this story with this electronic music going on in the background. I wish I could hear it. I'm tempted to. I'm tempted to actually find it and put it up, and I'll explain later. And at first I thought, well, I knew there was this group, and I have a CD by them somewhere. I think they were called Celestial Navigations, and they were around, the late 80s, early 90s maybe. They had CDs come out, and the funny thing is they went out of print very, very quick. They're a bit of an oddity. It was a group that made electronic music, but every single piece of music had a story. They were story-based, a fictional story that they would make up and recite with the music playing in the background. And they had at least 3 or 4 CDs. I actually bought one of them used. So actually, I think that might have been my first used CD purchase. I completely forgot about that. But the stuff went out of print very quickly, and they got played a couple places. I know. And forgive my camera. My camera might be moving while I speak because it's so. I'm having trouble getting. That keeps on moving, and I started recording the video, and the whole thing came down on me. And so I could see it's not very level. Either that, or we've had an earthquake, and my building is now kind of standing on its side. But I don't think that's the case. I heard this and I thought, I wonder if that's a Celestial Navigations piece. But their pieces, oddly enough, the guy that would recite them had a fairly mellow voice from what I recall. And I got to dig out that one CD of theirs. And this guy was just like a really bad B-movie actor, and just this weird story about this guy's talking to the spirit of an African princess who lost her legs or something like that. It's really like, God, this is just weird. Now the funny thing is I'm of course waiting as the show ends to hear who this was, and I realized I actually have the CD that this is on. Tim Clement, Water Station is the name of the album. He may be better known as half of Dana and Clement. Oddly, a guy that I worked with, a good old friend of mine that I used to work with, his favorite group was probably Dana and Clement. And he always used to complain about the fact they only had like 4 albums out. Why didn't they record more? And I'd say, well, they got solo albums. Well, Michael Dana was very prolific. He had, it's in the late 80s or so. He had a solo contract, and I have several of his solo albums, and then went on to write many soundtracks. And I think the soundtrack work is primarily what's keeping him going. And his solo work was quite interesting, though. He used a lot of acoustic instruments instead of the pretty purely electronic, or mostly electronic, bent that the Dana and Clement albums had. Now, Tim Clement, which was the other half of the group, as far as I know, in all this time that Michael Dana is doing additional solo albums, soundtracks and stuff, I'm only aware of Tim Clement making one other album, which I bought, a CD called Water Station. I remember playing it and not liking it very much, and I was looking for it now, I can't find it. And saying, oh, oof, wow, that didn't work. And oddly enough, this track, which I don't recall at all, even after knowing where it was from, was actually this track about this weird African princess ghost with no legs or something like that. It was actually from that album. If that's any example of I got to dig that album out now. It's pretty awful, actually. If I find that album, I'm really tempted to put that track up here, though. But it was just funny because I'm like, what the hell is this? So really good times. I listened to actually all 4 of these. I got listening in the car. I didn't think I did that much driving, but that's over 3 hours. I guess just running back and forth to the grocery store and doing my laundry or something. Wonderful things to have. I'm going to dump those in my computer because there's so much stuff there that I don't have to go through. Now, the CDs. Now, when I first opened the box, I pulled out the 3 vinyls that Carm sent me, and I thought that was the whole package. And then all of a sudden, I just see this other stuff in there, and there's these 4 CDs that he sent of the the Starstreams show, and then there's another bunch of CDs in here. I'm like, this is like 3 Christmases wrapped up in one. I don't know where to start. Carm's taking notes or something when he listens to my videos, because he sends me Cadona 2. Now, I have all 3 Cadonas on vinyl. I bought Cadona 1 and 3, and I did mention this, on CD, and somehow just never got around to buying Cadona 2. And then what happened is they went out of print and came back in print, but you had to buy. They only came back as a combined box set with all 3 CDs in there. And when I was just doing my Colin Walcott video, and the video on the solo works of the members of Oregon, I was saying, I guess to get Cadona 2, which I really don't like. bother to play the vinyl so much. Funny thing is, the vinyl's sitting on the floor over there, not far away from here, but I guarantee I haven't played it in over 20 years, maybe as long as 30 years. So I know, despite the fact that the vinyl's sitting right over there, I haven't actually put it on my turntable for, like I said, between 20 and 30 years. And wonderful. And I remember certain things about this album that I remember there being a lot of Don Cherry's voice and a lot of Don Cherry's melodica on here. The little plastic wind instruments like a piano keyboard. And sure enough, there they are. The record is very much exactly like I remembered it. I was complaining that I would have to buy the box set to get to Cadona 2 on CD because I already had 1 and 3. And he sends me Cadona 2. He finds it, which is very nice. You know, I just thank you. And here's where some of the things between me and Carm get weird, because he seems to anticipate a lot of things that are going on, or things that I would want to hear or something like that. Another thing he sent is new and sealed, by the way, Charles Lloyd Quartet, John Abercrombie, Dave Holland, almost Gateway right there, and the late Billy Higgins on drums and percussion. Billy Higgins was this, the main. When I think of Billy Higgins and Charles Lloyd, they were, especially in the last years, very much a unit that worked together, like Ed Blackwell and Don Cherry did for a lot of years. That drummer horn player thing. Sometimes recording, duet albums of just the percussion and the horn instruments. And the late Billy Higgins was very much, I think the last thing he recorded, I'm sure, was with Charles Lloyd, as a matter of fact, just a few months before he passed. This is interesting. I really like this album. And, as typical with Charles Lloyd, he gives the sidemen a lot of space. So there's a lot of moments when you're just hearing the trio, and John Abercrombie really gets solo space in there. This is from 1999. Now, what's interesting is on my back shelf right there, you see that where I'm pointing? The second shelf, there's 1, 2. The second shelf, Carm must have really good vision, because right where I'm pointing, that's where my Charles Lloyd collection is. On there are my bunch of Charles Lloyd CDs. What I don't understand is, can he read those? Because I have, I have some Charles Lloyd things that aren't on ECM. Most of the Charles Lloyd things I have are on ECM. How did he know that I didn't have this one? I don't know. Because I have CDs that were recorded by Charles Lloyd on ECM that are from the same period right around there, unless he can read right there and he can read that I didn't have this one. I don't know. I don't know how he took that chance and sent me one that I didn't already have. Just incredible. This is interesting. I think this is the only album, unless maybe an early one. No, I think this is the only Charles Lloyd album where he only plays tenor saxophone. No flute. He plays a lot of flutes, and he usually features another horn instrument too, something exotic. And he doesn't do it on the sets. All tenor sax on this album. Very interesting. Very interesting. And of course, a later day thing. And he remakes Forest Flower, which is one of the albums, the Forest Flower album, which was, I read from 60, I want to say it's from 69, I'm pretty sure it's from 69, which was the album that really struck home and is probably his best known album. It's one of the first, apparently, it's one of the first jazz albums that sold 1 million copies, was the Forest Flower album. And I think that's Keith Jarrett on there and Jack DeJohnette on that album. It was big enough and popular enough that it managed to get played. Of course, this is 69 when radio was a lot more open. It apparently got played quite a bit on FM radio stations that were primarily like rock stations. Of course, back in 69, they were a lot more open-ended than they are now, because it kind of pushed the album, made Charles Lloyd's biggest album of his career, and probably introduced him to a whole lot of people that wouldn't have heard of him otherwise. And I have that album. It's a live recording. It's a bit rough by today's standards. I actually like his later stuff better. But I could see why the rock audience, not that it was rock-ish, but the audience at that time that, the rock audience could stand to listen to long jammy things, and interesting. And so he redoes it here. He redoes the Forest Flower piece. Voice in the Night is the name of it, by the way, because I don't think I said that. Really nice. Old tenor sax. Very interesting. but there's more. This is something that it's covered up by the Obi, kind of. Here's the back cover. John Abercrombie's arcade album, one of the 3 quartet albums that he made in the late 70s going into the early 1980, that for some reason ECM has not released on CD. And on 2 different occasions, and I talked about this on one of my old videos, for some reason, on 2 different occasions, ECM licensed the album to a Japanese record company. Just one of the 3. This is what I'll get. Both times they licensed Arcade, the first one of the 3, to a Japanese record company, who then put it out on CD, and this is the only CD edition to get. Now, I've been holding off on getting it, and I've been listening to the album nonetheless, which is in my computer. But I haven't bought the CD for 2 reasons. One is incredibly expensive. It's Japanese only. And again, this was new. This was sealed with the Obies. I don't know why the Obies make them so valuable. If you were going to resell this, which I would never do, but if you're going to resell it, like, the Obies drive the price up. I love the Obies. They're kind of cool looking, but they're all in Japanese. And honestly, I don't think there's any information on there that wasn't on the original album anyway. I love them myself. I'm kind of fascinated by them. But I don't know even why collectors find them so enticing, to be honest. There's really no information on there. It's all in Japanese, and it's pretty much, the titles, the year, maybe the musicians, but all in Japanese. Yet I love them myself, and I always, in order to save them, I stick them inside I always stick them inside the case, like as you've seen. And this one has a whole full, in Japanese, little inserts. Quite interesting. It's interesting to look at the hieroglyphics on here because I clearly can't read Japanese. It's a beautiful album, though. I probably put it as my top 3 favorite Abercrombie album ever. Here's the actual cover. Take it out of the case. Beautiful. And I've showed the vinyl I have of this little rainbow there. Beautiful, quiet album. Yes, it's definitely number 3, and it's tough because you can't beat Abercrombie's Characters album, which I've had on vinyl and CD for many years. I love that one so much. I have 2 CD copies of it actually. And I think my second favorite is Sargasso Sea, which is a duet album with Ralph Towner. And I think this is number 3. And let me tell you, that's high praise because I have a lot of John Abercrombie albums. And this is the highest ranking one that I have that I haven't had on CD. And thanks, Carm, buddy, because this costs a small fortune. There's no way around it. This is a Japanese-only CD release. You can't get it right now otherwise. And I have been looking at it online for years, waiting for somebody to offer it at a reasonable price. And I almost kind of gave up hope and was hoping that the 3 CDs that have not been, the 3 albums that have not been released on CDs by ECM by the same exact Abercrombie quartet, I was hoping they were going to put them together in a set. At one point it was even announced and it didn't happen. So I don't know. I might even be missing some stuff. He sent me so much stuff and a letter. The letter's over there. Should I get it? Let me see. Hold on. Oh, that's not the letter. I don't have a letter. I have a stack of things over there. He sent me a lovely letter, which I naturally will keep, but I thought it was right on the top of my stack, and that's something else. What did I do with the letter? Don't worry, Carm, buddy. I have it, and it's going. I'm probably going to stick it inside the Michael Bierlo album, actually, to keep. Now, here's an interesting thing. Another instance of Carm, like reading my mind or something. The band is called the Ministry of Inside Things, which I had not heard of. But oddly enough, just very recently, I was looking at the radio online. I was looking at the radio program Star's End, which is one of those programs like Echoes and Starstreams. It's a weekly program. Plays this kind of electronic music, whatever you want to call it. It's on at night. It's pretty much a late evening program. And I actually used to listen to it. I think it's played on Saturday evenings for like 5 hours. And years ago, I used to get up early on the weekends. I had a dog, and I used to take her for walks in a county park on weekends when I wasn't working. I would get up early as soon as dawn came, as soon as the sun started coming out. I would drive about 8 or 10 miles to this county park just to walk her around the perimeter of the park, which would take anywhere from a half hour to an hour, and let her sniff around. She loved it. It was like the highlight of her life. I did that on weekends religiously, and would go early before the park got overrun with other people walking their dogs. And not the joggers so much wouldn't interfere, but there's a lot of people walking their dogs and things like that there, and letting them run free and stuff like that. So I used to go there when it was pretty quiet and undisturbed. And especially in the summertime, I would go pretty much as dawn hit. It'd be like 5 in the morning. I would go there and walk her. And I used to have, I guess it was a very early Walkman, a radio Walkman. And I used to catch the last hour, just about the last hour or so, of, I guess it was Star's End, because I knew it had been on for many hours. And the host is, this guy Chuck Van Zyl is his name. And he also does, this comes out of the Philadelphia area, so it's a few hours from me, but it's not all that far away. Interesting thing is Chuck Van Zyl also does a concert series out of Philadelphia of electronic music, and a lot of times the only place where the only time that Steve Roach will really come and play anywhere in this eastern area here, the New York, New Jersey, Philly market, would be at those concerts that he puts on. Actually, a lot of the electronic artists that don't do that much touring for whatever reason, it's all economics really, where these bands are not primarily live bands, actually come and play at the it's usually summertime music series that he puts on in the Philadelphia area. And what I didn't know, I knew about this series for years. I haven't gone yet. One of these days I'm going to get there, but it is a few hours from here. I didn't know, and as much as I've heard Chuck's voice and heard him announcing and everything over the years, I didn't know until very recently, like the last year or so, that he was a musician. And it's one of those things I put on my wish list. As I said, 5,000 items and growing. I'm like, wow, all this time, I did not know that he played music. He's a synthesizer artist. So I kind of randomly selected, I guess, a CD or two of his and put them in my wish list, which I haven't purchased yet. Always wondering what it sounded like, because all these years I didn't know he was an artist himself. So when I got this, I didn't know until I opened the booklet that this is actually Chuck Van Zyl's a duo that he has with a guitarist. And I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. It's perfect. It's like, did you see my wish list too, Carm? Because Art Cohen is the guitarist, and Chuck Van Zyl plays synthesizers. It's a 2-disc set. Awesome. 2 discs. So there's, plenty to bite into there. It's an hour and 56 minutes. 2-disc set of all live stuff. The interesting thing, reading the booklet inside, and I counted, and I think the number is 11. It sounds like one big, long concert. That's the way it's sequenced. The pieces pretty much run into each other. The only break is when, from CD1 to CD2. So it sounded like a single concert to me. That's the way they, I guess, programmed it to. When you read the liner notes inside, you realize that this was taken from like 11 different concerts. I think the number that I counted was 11. That's a lot of work to take those 11 concerts and chunk them together and edit them together to make it really sound like a cohesive single whole concert. And I have to think that maybe one of the reasons why there's so many different concerts represented is, this music is a little weird, where sometimes you have a show and they group X number of bands together, and they give them, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes tops to play, which really isn't long enough for this music to develop into anything. And it sounds like, you know, they may have been a short series of concert performances that they taped individually, and then somehow these guys got it to flow together, so it sounds like one big long, you know, hour and 56-minute concert. Music sounds very much like, many times, pointing toward Fripp and Eno, all the way from No Pussyfooting, the first little more primitive sounding album, all the way to the current stuff that they've done, like, was it Equatorial Stars? You know, the more recent things, you know, that incorporate more modern sounds and samples in there. And also quite a bit to Robert Fripp's Soundscapes, which he used to call Frippertronics. He calls Soundscapes now. He's recorded a whole series of solo albums of these Soundscapes. And the music sounds a bit like that now. And occasionally you do hear I say a dub, almost techno-like bass line to some of these things, but thankfully no heavy-handed drums. There's a little percussion that comes up once in a while in a sequence, but nothing too obstructive, you know, to really damage the flow. But the bass lines kick in a few times, a kind of repetitive rhythmic bass line. And I've listened to this several times, and actually have been having this on a playlist and kind of falling asleep with a lot of it playing too. But actually, I've been putting all the Carm stuff that he sent me that I have in my computer so far on the playlist. The only thing I don't have is the J.D. Emanuel vinyl album, which I will be dumping in my computer because I'm absolutely sure I'm going to love it. I haven't even heard that yet, and I really didn't want to do this video until I heard it, but it's just getting so far after the fact, and I got catching up to do here. So this is a real interesting album too. Very, very Fripp and Eno-ish. One more thing. And this almost, and I hope this isn't taken in the wrong way. Now, this probably won't be much of a surprise to folks that watch my videos, because Carm also sent me this vinyl Listen and Learn Home Typing course, which has no copyright date on it that I can find, but distinct feeling this is either from the 50s or early 60s. Now, those folks that watch all my videos may have seen that I actually posted this up. I took the entire vinyl, copied it into my computer. It took several shots because there were skips on the album. And I thought I could clean them away, but I couldn't. So it took several attempts to get the second side recorded, edited, put it in my computer, took photos of all the pages on here, including, you know, the inside pages that show you the typing instructions. And I put that up so everyone could experience this wonderful album. I have a lot to say about this album. It was, the fact that Carm would send it to me was actually very moving. One of the first videos I ever watched of Carm, and you know, it could have even been the first video, definitely was in the first 3 videos of his that I saw. He showcased that album as one of his recent purchases. Everybody that's watching me has seen Carm's videos. And it's very apparent, I think, to everyone, the kind of personality that Carm has. He's a warm guy. He's, what can you say? He's obviously an intelligent person. A warm, wonderful, genuinely kind-hearted, compassionate person. And when he showed that to me, the only thing I wasn't sure of is when he showed it to me, it was like, ding, ding, that's the last thing that you've got to do to be like the perfect person. And that is have a sense of humor. And obviously anybody that would see this in the store and pick it up, he knew what was on here. And just as soon as he showed it, so did I. He knew this was going to be a very, very dry album. When he showed this, I said, bingo, this guy is just like the best. And I had a comment, and it might have been the first time I even commented on one of Carm's videos, I'm not sure. And I said, that's a grail. That's a grail find. Forget about anything and everything else. It was a joke, obviously, but it shows a lot about his person and his personality. Since then, Carm and I have gotten to know each other pretty well, and very well, actually. And I'm always commenting on his videos, and he's always commenting on mine. I'm always bringing up the Grail find. You know, I'm always bringing up the how to type record that he found. That's the number one thing I always bring up. And this may sound weird to you. When I think of Carm, not even when I'm watching a video, just when I think something about Carm, the first thing that I think of besides Carm the person, for whatever reason, I think of the how to type record. Those things are linked. And I know Carm's music and his music taste is very much like mine. I think I know some of his favorite albums and some of his favorite artists. But when I think of Carm, the first recording, the first non-Carm thing that I think of is the how to type record. It's linked, and it will always. I don't think there will ever be a time when Carm will come into my mind that I don't think of this how to type record. And I can picture him presenting it and talking to the video, to the camera right now as he presented it in his original video. And I will forever find that funny, no matter how many times I go back and I rewatch that video. And I always mention to him how that was the grail. He'll talk about, you know, his new finds or his new acquisitions or something that came up. I said, that's great, Carm, but it's not how to type. And, you know, he sends me the how to type. And I have to tell you, and I hope he doesn't take this the wrong way, but I cannot keep this. And I tell you, you know, for one thing, I'm a lot older than Carm. Carm is going to be around a lot longer than me. And I want this to be in his collection. I really, honestly do. One of the things in my imagination that I've come up with, and it's probably a total falsehood, but it's just one of those things that exists in my imagination, is that I picture maybe Carm having a bad day at work, rough week, whatever. And he comes home and, you know, he wants to unwind, he wants to, you know, lighten his load a little bit, you know, and get in a good mood. And I picture him pulling this out and playing it. It might be something that he never actually did. And I don't even know if he's listened to the whole thing, like I have now, about a half a dozen times. I have to tell you. And now that I have the record in my possession, that whole image of him coming home and playing it on a rough day, he can't do it. And I don't want to die with him not having that in his record collection. And I hope he doesn't take this the wrong way. I have taken digital pictures of every page on the album, you know, the booklet inside and everything, front and back cover. I have recorded it into my computer. I will be very shortly burning it onto a CDR. And I have, and I'm sure everyone has seen this, put the entire album up on my page, so you too can experiencing it, including the digital photos I took of the album cover. So although you can't read the inside information in the booklet inside, you can see the pages are there. And I actually have listened to it on YouTube. I'm watching my own channel, which is really pathetic, I know. But I just, you know, he's such a sweet guy to send it. And I almost cried when I saw it, to be honest. Because it's just something that I want to know that he's got it there, so that, and he might never do this, like I said. When he comes home on a rough day, he's got it there to put on and play. Now, you can all do it digitally in the digital world on my channel, because I will never take that video down. I seriously don't think any copyright people are going to come along and wipe that audio, like appears to would have happened with the Michael Birlow album. So that's staying up there. That's like an icon. I might wipe out all my other videos, but that one will stay. So thanks, buddy. And don't take it the wrong way, but at some point, I'm going to hold on to it for a little while, but I want this I want to know that this is resting on your shelf. And when you come home someday, you're going to want to put it on. Yes, even though you can come to my channel and watch it there. I was just so incredibly moved that he sent that. I had a few other things I wanted to bring up, and short of taking notes, which I probably should be doing. In my advanced years, I tend to forget everything. By the way, John Abercrombie's Arcade album, to whatever extent you can hear it, is playing in the background. The nice Japanese CD that Carm bought for me. But saying thank you for that stash isn't enough. I really, I'm just incredibly moved by it all. And it came at I'm having a rough week, and I don't know why specifically. You have these times when you're just not in a great mood. And I've been having trouble keeping up. In the last couple of weeks, my writing of my music is also really just kind of ground to a halt. And it's just not, the last couple of days I was working on it, just nothing was sounding good to me. And, I'm using a program that, for the first time, I'm using a sequencing program. You have to put all the notes in the sequencing program. It's a lot of work. But the strange thing is, once the notes are there, and this is the only time I've ever done this, you don't have to play anything with your hands. The computer plays it. But the typing in of each individual note kind of is really incredibly time-consuming. It might be easier for me to go and just grab a guitar and record an album of guitar stuff and just put it out. But I really have this concept, which has been changing, but I have this concept that for my next album, I'll do 2 really long pieces, like 30 minutes each. And one of them is using strictly orchestral type sounds, not electronic sounds. And the other one will be electronic sounds. But man, it's really, the work is getting there. And I'm not even sure about one of the sections I wrote. And the orchestral piece part, I got about 14 minutes done, so that's almost halfway, but it's just like, wow, it's just so, work intensive, and just, I lost my drive somehow. And just the last couple days that I put stuff in there, it's like, I just don't know anymore if this is any good. So, it's maybe that's why I'm down. I'm not sure. Or just a natural kind of cycle, that will turn itself around, hopefully. So it's a good week to get stuff like that, I'm looking at this, at this J.D. Emanuel thing. This is obviously the next thing I've got to hit. And, when I see somebody, with their hands on an organ like that, I just get excited because it makes me think of Terrier Island. So thanks, Carm, buddy. I thank you isn't enough. I don't know what to say. It's just so incredibly kind and generous. So I'll be back. Both Carm and I on the same day actually received another package. It's like Christmas around here. From Jeff, from Mr. Vinyl Spin himself. Oh my God, there's a ton of stuff there. I haven't even begun to crack that egg yet. So I'm gonna have to do another video there, but I got to get to some of that stuff at least a little bit first. So thanks, Carm. Thanks for everybody watching. Appreciate all your comments and your watching and all that. And I'll be back soon. And I hope everyone's having a great weekend, or what little is left of it, or week whenever you see this. So thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.